we'll talk to him tonight. Yeah.
Oh, I thought that variance was up tonight.
No, it has to go in the packet Friday,
Okay.
and we can pivot if we need to. I had thought the complete opposite, but yeah,
I think it's a really tough one.
yeah.
So I agree. I think asking Ben's not a bad plan.
I've never met him actually, so.
I've never met Ben either. Only Dick. There's a lot on here for a special meeting.
Some of these items should go quick. So the resolutions, yeah. Yeah, but that's how busy we are.
I know. I owe Rachel so much stuff, but. Oh,
She's in budget mode. She's downstairs, so.
Good. If she asks, I think.
Chair, I think staff's ready to move forward. We know that Commissioner McGinnis will be a little late tonight. We have not heard from Commissioner Northcross, but hopefully he'll be coming soon. And Commissioner Duvall has expressed that she's unable to come. We do have a quorum, so it may be time to start.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open the Pontiac Planning Commission meeting for May 10th of 2023. Do a little formal opening there. Well, I would like to introduce who we have here tonight in the room. To my left is Planning Manager Mark Andrick. To my far left is Morgan McAtamany.
McAtamany.
Oh,
Thank you.
She's with the Kelly firm. Mr. Michael McGinnis is on his way. To my left here is Tim Shepard. To my far right, I have Sam Henley. And then to my right of Sam is our new commissioner, Sue Sinclair. Thank you. We have Christopher Northcross hopefully on his way, and I am Chairperson Mona Parlov. So would you like to take the roll call?
Sure. Henley.
Present.
Shepard.
Present.
Parlov.
Present.
And Sinclair.
Present.
All right. So we have 4. We have a quorum tonight.
Wonderful. Official communications?
I just want to officially welcome, and Sue Sinclair was approved as the mayor's appointment to Planning Commission last night, so it's a quick turnaround. We thank her for coming this evening. Sue has been in, I believe, the Seminole Hills neighborhood, a resident for many years, and brings some technical experience to this commission. So we're excited to have her. She has been sworn in, so she is ready to go this evening. And so I definitely want to say on behalf of staff, welcome, Sue. So, okay.
Thank you, and welcome, Sue. We have Mr. Northcross joining us now. Are there any amendments to an approval of the agenda?
If I may ask, Chair, we have a public hearing for 7A on a special exception permit, but we also have a site plan which is required under 9A. So if the commission so chooses, we would like to move that site plan discussion at the conclusion of 7A, just because that topic will be fresh on your mind. So we'll do 7A, 9A, and then we'll continue on with the agenda at 7B.
That sounds good. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I need a motion to adjust the agenda, please.
Motion to adjust the agenda as noted. Support.
Thank you. Roll call?
You can do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good.
Aye.
Aye and hi. Meeting minutes for this evening, there are none to review, so we may as well get right into our special presentation for public hearing. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, give me just a second. I'm going to head.
Thank you very much. Our first public hearing tonight is SEP 23-008. The applicant, I think I need more coffee. The applicant is Jen Zielinski with Common Citizen. It's the Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center in a non-overlay district, and the address is 45671 Woodward Avenue.
And before we begin, I just want to clarify, the heading says site plan application. It is a site plan, but this is specifically for a special exception permit. Okay. So that is the first public hearing tonight. The address for this is at 45671 Woodward Avenue. The proposed use is a medical marijuana provisioning center, and the zoning district is C3. Because this is in a non-overlay district for the medical marijuana, it requires a special exception approval by Planning Commission. So that's why this is here tonight. This is the location, the red dot from our friends at Google explain where the site is. This is south of the Rapid Street traffic light where the fish market is, and it is due north of the M1 concourse and South Boulevard, so that you see the location there. And this is the zoning map. Again, it is C3, which is a common zoning district on the Woodward Avenue corridor. This is an aerial photo just showing the existing site that's there. I believe it was an auto shop, but you have the existing building to the northwest, and then you have the parking and access to the site on the southeast side of the property. And then you have the railroad track adjacent to it as well. So I did want to share just some brief elevations. There are some minimal changes. They're doing some enhancements to this building. But outside of the architectural changes, there's not a lot being changed in here other than the use itself. So this is showing the proposed elevations as such. Many of the architectural features are remaining. They are adding some windows. They're kind of modifying some of the windows along Woodward Boulevard. This is the site plan as presented, really establishing the parking lot, establishing the use and details that are there. Because this is an existing site, there are many nonconformities that are allowed to exist, and those are detailed within the staff report. These are some of the renderings that were provided by the applicant, in terms of concrete block, aluminum composite panels, and steel beams. Obviously, this looks a lot more activated as a space beyond just seeing the people in the rendering, but just looking at the architecture alone, this definitely gives a refresh to this building with those architectural elements. And just for some comparison, this is a street view of the site, and we used Google from a couple years ago. It looks pretty similar today. So with a special exception permit, there are several standards of approval. The proposed use shall be harmonious with the Pontiac master plan. The proposed use and appearance of the site shall be harmonious with the existing and intended character of the general vicinity. The proposed use shall not change the essential character of the area or adversely affect the development of the surrounding neighborhood. And then the proposed use shall not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future uses in the general vicinity, and will be a substantial improvement to the community as a whole. I'm going to summarize these standards. There's a more detailed analysis in the report, but this is a C3 corridor with a variety of uses in that C3 zoning district. This is an attempt, it is a change in use, but really there's not any residential properties adjacent to this, and it really attempts to repurpose the existing building. So it's not going to greatly increase traffic, and it's not going to have any other pollution or byproducts that are going to greatly affect the surrounding area. So with that, staff's recommendation on the special exception is it's appropriate. Staff recommends approval without conditions. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have, particularly about the special exception process and what Planning Commission is reviewing. If you have any further questions, please let me know. And then the applicant is here to speak with you as well about the case. So.
Very good. Does anybody here with me at the table have any questions about the information so far? Tim?
I don't. I think my questions will be with the site plan. So.
Okay, very good. How about for you, Sam?
No questions.
Sue?
No questions.
And how about you, Chris?
I still have an issue trying to, I think we're extrapolating, we're projecting as we say, we understand that this is going to work, that if we go back to your conclusion, if we can, so I can use your words, this is where you make your recommendation or conclusion. I think it's one slide back. No, the other way.
Are you the recommendation?
At the end.
Okay.
Yeah, staff recommendation. I think that, I think that's, given the information that one has, I think that is, we just have not had any medical marijuana provisioning centers opened in Pontiac. We laid out 3 areas in which we were to have medical marijuana provisioning centers, these 3 overlay districts. And as I remember, that was done so that we could gather information about how things work before we jump to the special exception process. That's my only real issue with this. I think all 3 of those areas have had 5 medical marijuana provisioning centers approved for a total of 15. And within the ordinance, there's a total of 20. So that leaves 5 provisioning centers that can be placed in non-overlay districts. And as I understand it right now, all of the special exception will happen along Woodward, along the Woodward corridor. So, anyway, I am still a little unsettled about trying to project exactly what's going to happen here. It's like we're starting to put a couple of variables that we don't have any idea on, really, and trying to project good. That's my only issue.
Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
So this
And
is.
Tim, could you bring your mic down a little
Yeah,
bit?
sorry.
Thank you.
So this is the medical. So we're not approving the rec that went through all the stuff that we went through the last 6-8 months. This is one that was already approved, so they already have their medical temporary license, so.
Conditional license for the record.
Conditional
Yep.
license, so it's up, how I understand this is a little more of a formality. I mean, as far as this point, I don't think it's necessarily something, it's not like the rec. So the rec thing is what we talked about recently. So right now, these guys all have a temporary provisional license, so I think it's a little different than the next stage. They don't have a rec license yet. So.
And if
I'm clear on that.
If I may add, this is really a special exception process. This should be handled no differently than anything else where, a group home is looking, or not a group home, a child daycare facility is looking to go into an R2 district. That requires a special exception. You're looking at these same criteria that are here. This is a new use. It's a little different. I think these conditional licenses were based on a scoring system that was provided to applicants that the city entails. Now, if a site met the requirements, but it was right next to a school, I think during the special exception process, Planning Commission would be evaluating, is this correct? Are there additional things that really protect the neighboring properties, the kids? And I think in staff's conclusion, analysis and conclusion on this, there really isn't those variables for this specific location and this specific request, so.
And their application's already, the only way they would have applied and got approval on that is if they were clear of everything else.
They met the requirements, but that still doesn't mean that a planning commission, through this special exception process, still has to do this evaluation
I get that.
Of how this site and this use fits in with the surrounding environment.
Morgan?
I'm not allowed to speak right now. There's so many. Thank you. I think it might be beneficial to go over what the conditions for approval are, specifically in a special exception permit, because obviously this is a new commission, so.
Okay, so again, there are 4 standards of approval that planning commission should consider. The proposed use shall be harmonious with the City of Pontiac master plan. And I just want to describe that medical marijuana is not really prescribed at all in our 2014 master plan. And our master plan is a vision for the city. It's guidance. There are a lot of things in the zoning code that are not addressed in the master plan, and that's okay, as long as the land use has to be consistent with the vision and not go against that vision. But really, it doesn't change that Woodward is for commercial and light industrial uses, and that's the land use map. So, from staff's analysis, this box is checked. And this one's a little bit more clear cut because it doesn't, while it's a different use, it really aligns with the commercial light industrial uses on Woodward. Number 2, the proposed use and appearance of the site shall be harmonious with the existing and intended character of the general vicinity. This doesn't look just at Woodward, it doesn't look just at the master plan, but it looks, at the area surrounding it as a whole. And then there are some correlations with number 1, but this is C3 for higher intensity commercial uses. While we know there's anywhere between 11 and 16,000 people that go on Woodward a day, there's potential for a lot more just with the lane profile that's there. And so you're not going to have these neighborhood businesses that people are going to. So this, as a medical marijuana facility, fits in with some of the surrounding environment. So it doesn't, it's not a departure from that. Number 3, the proposed use shall not change the essential character of the area or adversely affect the neighborhood, the development of the surrounding neighborhood. And I do want to caution on this one. You are evaluating surrounding neighborhoods. You want to make sure there's no effect to a residential neighborhood that might start 2 blocks away. But you also have to look at the commercial neighborhood. Is a medical marijuana facility going to negatively impact the commercial neighborhood that's along Woodward and surrounding properties? So really, you need to make a determination on that for this use. And then the last one is the proposed use shall not be hazardous or disturbing to an existing or future uses in the general vicinity and will be a substantial improvement to the community as a whole. And there's a few things to consider here. They're rehabbing an existing business. The architecture is going to look much better. You need to evaluate, is this hazardous or disturbing to uses on this corridor? That's really for planning commission to decide, and when you have M1 and you don't have a lot of schools and churches in the immediate vicinity, it does, I'd make that evaluation yourself, but in staff's opinion, we felt that it was consistent with the Woodward corridor. So those are the 4 standards of approval for a special exception. Some of these overlap, some of these seem very similar, but I believe they're defined from the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, if I have that correct. And so, and really in your deliberations, that's what you should be considering. So.
Let's have the public hearing. Let's not belabor this any longer.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
And
All right.
I'll make my comments after the public hearing.
Thank you, Christopher. If the petitioner would please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
And just turn the button on the right on for the mic.
It's the little face.
Thanks, I like it.
See
Thank
that?
you.
You're welcome.
My name is Mike Beck. I'm actually the Director of Community and Government Affairs for Common Citizen. My address is 9945 D Drive North in Battle Creek. With us today, Jen Zielinski. So I'm not Jen Zielinski applicant, but Jen Zielinski is here, the applicant sitting right here. We have Mr. Harold Remlinger. He's our lead architect from Design Team Plus, can answer any architectural questions you may or may not have. And then our civil engineer, Tim Story from Story Engineering. So we brought the whole team here that developed the plans that you saw. Just a couple points about us. We've been in business since the beginning. We're not the biggest retailer in the state of Michigan. We have 9 facilities. We have 2 facilities in Lapeer. We have 1 in Buchanan. It's kind of a border town to Indiana. We are in Ferndale. We're in Detroit. We're in Lake Orion. We're in Lansing and Hazel Park and Grand Rapids. We have different named brands. It's all under the same ownership group. So, the look is always the same. So when you see that look, that's kind of the look you would see if you go to Lake Orion, which is a fairly new store. It looks just like that. We're building one in Westland out of the ground right now. So the stores have the same feel, the same look. I remember one of the initial reviewers said to us, or posted online, it's like an Apple store and a weed store had a baby, because we like to be really high-tech, very bright, and really work with the community, because we're trying to just feel like we're a safe environment. So we're not new to this. We have a large cultivation facility. It's a hybrid indoor-outdoor grow in Marshall, Michigan, where we do processing. And we also have a cultivation facility in Chesaning and a processor there. So we have 9 stores, but we do a lot of wholesaling. So our products are in about 400 stores throughout the state of Michigan. So we're not new to the industry, but we also treat everything like every person is important. You know, we believe in cannabis for humanity. So, you know, we love coming here. We think we'll make this building, as you can see, pretty spectacular. Our goal is to be very bright, very open, work within the community. I've been working with the Pontiac Regional Chamber and Domini Head for quite a while. We do stuff within Pontiac already. We want to come here. We're looking forward to coming here. We see this as a great opportunity. That was a great opportunity for us, and we want to make it nicer. And that'll increase the property tax base and all those things. But that's kind of in a nutshell who we are. Again, it's not our first run at this. And you certainly can go to, you know, really easy to just take a peek at what we have. Just Lake Orion's not very far away, right? So that's a pretty successful store right on Broadway. So it is on a main drag as well. In Westland, we're right on Ford, which is going to be on the main drag there as well. So our stores fit really well in areas with a high traffic count, and we think we add to the retail space. If you have any questions for our team, we're certainly here to help you, and I appreciate your time. I know it's a special meeting, and we're very appreciative of you guys listening to us.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in Pontiac and bringing the team with you in case there are questions from my fellow commissioners. So I'm going to start with Tim Shepard first. Tim, do you have any questions?
Can you open the questions for him? I'm sorry, I'm
Yes,
jumping.
that's okay. No, that's okay. Any
I don't
questions?
really have any questions. I've been to your facility in Lake Orion. It's beautiful. So it was well done. It came out of the ground quick. So, I mean, it's what we want here. I shouldn't say we, but I think the whole idea of this whole process was to bring in new development like this. So
Lake Orion is a pretty good harbinger of that as well, because it's a rehab building.
Right.
It was an existing building.
Could you go back to the microphone, actually, please?
I'm sorry.
The other commissioners may have questions, so thank you.
Yeah, and I'll bring the team up as needed. But Lake Orion was an existing building that we rehabbed as well. So Westland is coming out of the ground. It was a pretty blighted structure that needed to come down, and there were some environmental issues on the site that we had to take care of. So we're bringing a new one out of the ground there. So we do whatever works best for the footprint that we're in.
good. Thank you. I don't have any questions.
All right, thank you. Sam, do you have any questions?
Not until site plan review.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
Where is your location in Ferndale?
Oh, gosh, I can't. It's on Hilton Road. I don't know the exact address. So we have a retail-facing brand is Live Cannabis. So if you've heard of Live, it's named that in Lansing. It's named that in Lake Orion. It's named that in Ferndale. It may well be named that here in Pontiac. So one of the things, just to explain why, one of the things we found that as a wholesale brand, and we have to sell, we only have 9 stores, and you try to sell to 400. There were people that are saying, why would I buy Common Citizen products when I'm advertising for this store right next to me? So it seems to have worked out pretty well for us.
Thank you. I work at 9 Mile in Hilton.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Great, thank you. Okay, Christopher?
Again, thank you for thinking of Pontiac. I really like the plans that I've seen so far. Again, my concern is that we do not have one marijuana provisioning center operating in Pontiac. And have always been caught off guard a couple of times in different careers when I look at an existing operating space that I'm working within, make all my calculations, understand that operating space, and then try to project outside of that operating space. And I've had a couple of times where it's blown up in my face. I really like what NASA was doing back in the 50s and the early 60s, where they were testing whether physics worked everywhere. Now, I thought that we as a city would have put in the medical marijuana provisioning centers and the 3 overlays first to understand this effect, and then go to the special exceptions. That's my hesitancy.
Yeah, and I understand your hesitancy. It was never our understanding that there was a who goes first, who goes second. We were given our conditional permit, and this was the time frame it took us to get the plans in front of the planning commission, or the planning team and staff. I can only speak to what we've done and point you to those places. We've been really successful, like I said, in Lake Orion. You've seen Ferndale. Lansing is a beautiful store right at the corner of Martin Luther King and I-96. You know, we think they accentuate neighborhoods, and data backs up that doesn't add to crime. And there's a lot of cameras on these stores. They're pretty heavily regulated, but I understand your concerns. But we weren't told that there was an order, right? So it was just
Yes.
Move on.
Yes, it's more a matter of timing for me than actual content and what you're presenting. I think it probably looks very sound, and I can see that you are baking in some of your experience in other areas. It's just that for me, I'm a little uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. You know, trying to
we'll
say,
make you comfortable.
"Go
Get us
here,"
in here, I promise.
and having not had any to operate in Pontiac. That's my issue.
Thank you, Christopher. One question that I have, Mike, is the approximate number of employees that you'll have at this facility?
Yeah, Jen, from that one, yeah, I think this one's a little larger than our normal stores, and we're trying to do some unique things with some entrepreneur incubation and try to get some folks into the industry through this store. So we're pretty excited about this store, but it's probably in the 30 to 35, maybe as high as 40 range.
Okay, great. And I'm assuming you're going to try and give some preference to Pontiac residents if they fit that profile for the
I would tell you,
employee.
now, there's certain criteria that you have to follow from the state side to be able to be employed.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you, as from a business standpoint, I'd love it to all be Pontiac residents because it's good business sense. You know, when people say, are you going to hire from local? Of course we are, because it's a lot easier. Those are people that are close to your facility. Mm-hmm. Plus, we're big on community benefits and getting it. We have a voluntary time off policy. So 50 hours for each person every year, we pay them to be within their own community. So who better knows what the needs are of their own community than people that are in that community? So that is 100% what we want to do. I want the number to be 100%, so.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, that's the only question I had. What I'm going to do is ask if you want to take a seat for a moment. I'm going to open up public hearing, but I'm just going to do a quick reminder. When we do public hearing, we do want you to approach the podium if you have any questions for the petitioners. We're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes, but once you are done at the podium, you can't talk when you're in the audience. It's when you're on microphone, please state what your questions are or what your thoughts are, and then once you sit down, you cannot re-engage, and especially after public comment has closed, you cannot re-engage from the audience. We do have public comment again at the end of the meeting. If you want to speak again, you can do that then. So I'm going to open public comment, and if anyone has any questions or concerns or any thoughts, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi there. I'm talking as a resident. My name is Darlene Clark. I live at 506 in Nebraska on the south side of Pontiac, just off Woodward. I have about 3 questions. First, on the corner of Rapid, there's a church there that has my concern. It's a church because it's been a church for a long time. Have you took that in consideration of that church on the corner? It's a brown brick building. Number 2, do any of you planning people ever take the time to truly look around our neighborhoods? And I say that with very strong conviction because you're tending to put, for example, the medical marijuana facility, you want to put it farther down away from the medical building or the medical facility where St. Joe Hospital was at. Then you put in one, you want to put one at the Super K, and both of them actually are around children. Take under consideration that we as Pontiac residents, let me tell you this, I've been here 70 years, born and raised in Pontiac. So I'm truly familiar with every street, every avenue. Pontiac people do want quality. We do want a hand up, not a hand out. We do want our best interests to be looked at. But what you're failing to understand, Pontiac resident does not have to just take anything at anybody's condition. The people that you, on your planning that you have to review, including the board. Now, Mr. Norcross and I went to school together, so he understands my background. And he's also, I'm not speaking on his behalf, but I feel he's feeling like I'm feeling in a lot of Pontiac residents. Contrary to what you people believe, and I say that sincerely, Pontiac is not a bad city. Pontiac is not all gang-related. It is not all drug-infested. It is not all murders and killers. There are very highly educated people here in Pontiac. There are very people who have started their business and they're built their homes here in Pontiac. So when you start making decisions for the people of Pontiac and putting these marijuana dispensers in there, don't just think about what the investors tell you what they can give to us. Ask us what we really want. Because giving us 30 to 35 people to employ over time, that's not true. Because if they're not qualified on that standard, they're not going to be there. You see what I'm saying? So look very closely before you make any decision. Walk the grounds, talk to the people, listen to them. Because let me tell you, you're going to have, and this is not a threat, you're going to have a situation that you will not be able to control.
Thank you, Darlene.
Good evening. Carlton Jones, 1323 Oakline Drive, Pontiac, Michigan, on the south side of Pontiac also. I want to say, I know none of us can speak for all the citizens in the city of Pontiac, but we, as a city, went through the process and approved medical marijuana to come in our city, and I'm one to believe that the democratic process should go forward with as much zeal as possible for the benefit of all Pontiac. I have had some interaction with this company through the Pontiac Chamber and TDC, which is the Talent Development Coalition. And I want you to be assured, if you want to reach out and get people pre-trained, that's what our organization is about. We don't have to wait till you open. If you really want to be pre-training, that's what our TDC is all about, training people locally for positions. I would say that we all need to come to grips, if you haven't, that it's been, if I did a lot of investigation, the medical aspects of marijuana supersede a lot of the drugs that we have on the market right now. Now, it could be opinionated, but I've done some investigation. A lot of the different drugs that people are using right now, medical marijuana has been superseding as far as the results. So let's don't think of marijuana, weed as being in the past. That's why it's said to be medical marijuana. I know there's recreational aspects of it too, but I want us as citizens in Pontiac to embrace what we have decided to do. Whenever it comes, we want to be prepared for it. But this company, I've had some contact with Mr. Head. I'm also a member of the Pontiac Chamber, and we are working together, TDC and the Pontiac Chamber, Regional Chamber. We want to be proactive, and those companies that reach out and truly be sincere about trying to train Pontiac residents, we want to embrace them, and I'm going to continue to say, I'm not here for no one company. This is for Pontiac. This is for Pontiac, and if they're really sincere, make sure you make contact with me, because I want to be able to try to help you train Pontiac people for what you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlton. All right, I am now going to close public hearing. And let's address a couple of the questions that Darlene had. Mark, she mentioned the church at the corner of Rapid and Woodward.
Yep. So as part of the business license process, applicants have to state that they're within or outside of the 500-foot buffer, the way it is calculated in the ordinance. And it was verified as part of this process that it's outside the 500 feet. So, and the only thing I just want to clarify from Ms. Clark's statement, if I may, is that, you know, the city's receiving these applications both for business licenses and for these zoning and planning permits. The city is not seeking these people out. These people are applying as private investors for these sites, and the city is just going through the process for each of them by the law.
Thank you. The next question that Darlene brought up, do we look at the neighborhoods as commissioners? I know that I do. I drive the areas when petitioners come to us and they want us to consider what they would like to bring to our community. Michael, do you check out neighborhoods as petitioners are bringing their potential businesses to us? You didn't hear the question that Darlene had.
I did. I was watching on the Facebook feed while stuck in Woodward Avenue traffic, and I looked at this building literally while it was the hearing and presentation was going. But yes, inspired in part by watching these planning commission meetings and zoning board of appeals meetings over the last decade, 15 years, it always impressed me when commissioners literally set eyes or walked a site. It gave me confidence that they get the context with which these planning decisions are made. So I do think that is a best practice. But also there's great value in having longtime Pontiac community members, to Ms. Clark's point, that sort of in their bones or, you know, sort of as part of their DNA, they're familiar with the fabric of neighborhoods, communities, what the needs, the flow of people are. So we're obviously looking to plan ahead. And then having that frame of reference of what has worked or what's been a challenge is always of great value. And so there's multiple ways that we can both have that frame of reference and then bone up and study up on it, depending on how they come up. I mean, I also get a kick out of looking historically at what a building once was. So I'll go to the city directories at our historical society and kick the tires that way too. And I mean, in all reality, I think we all can recognize that there are many parts of Pontiac where there are commercial and sometimes even residential structures where it's a bit incongruent with life today or what we would find as the best use for the land or how it'd be oriented. Some of these are buildings were built when there wasn't a car for every resident or 2 cars plus per family. But that's evolving again today. So we want to take all of that into consideration about what has been, what is now, but most importantly before us is what's best for Pontiac, setting us up for the generations to come.
Right. Good. Thank you for that. Tim, do you
Sure.
review areas before you?
So I'm going to try to answer one question about the church. So first of all, I think we all would say the same thing. It may look like we make quick decisions, but all of us have spent a lot of time on this. I've had property in town. I've had a house on your street, as a matter of fact, for over 15 years. So, yeah, on Nebraska, 451, 451, but it was years ago that I sold it. But so I do love the city. I wouldn't be here otherwise. The idea that, like, a lot of this stuff has been in the works for a long time, so it's not, for some of us, it's not the first time seeing these. It's not like, oh, somebody just popped up, a new investor came, and we just said yes. Most of these investors have been waiting for several years. The church situation, so how it's measured, because if you just look at this as a crow flies, your point is valid, because it is close to that. But it's not as the crow flies. It's as the car would drive. If you want to get to that church, you got to come out of their parking lot, go down the street, and somebody can correct me if I'm not missing the angles here, and then turn back around to get to that church. That's the way they measure for liquor license, and that's the way they measure for cannabis in this ordinance for the city. So that's why it couldn't have passed the application process if it was within 500 feet otherwise. So they've all gone through their years of application and process and all the stuff they've had to commit to community benefits, and I don't know what they specifically have, but there's lots of things they've gone through to make sure they hit the right points to score enough to get this medical approval. Again, it's not the rec approval, so it's not, without getting into details, the rec approval is what everybody wants. because medical is very hard to make. That's why you don't see anything open right now. It's very hard, it's very difficult to make those work as just medical, because you'd have to have a license for it.
Yes.
So.
May I ask for some order on the floor? As part of public comment, it's okay, courtesy, to answer some of these questions, but really, Planning Commission should be focusing on the case at hand and the applicant, not necessarily, not necessarily answering questions. And I think that anyone that has questions from the audience can direct those to planning staff, and I think we'd be happy to address those outside of the meeting. We have a long agenda tonight, and I think for fairness to all applicants and the commission, if you could start proceeding.
Okay, very good. All right, we will move on to.
If I may, I disagree. I think this is a time for the public to come and to discuss the items. This is a public hearing. And if I've always felt that if questions are raised from the floor, the chair should note what those questions are, hold those questions until everyone else has had a chance to speak, then answer. And I think it does a lot for the understanding of the whole community. That's just me personally. Now, I don't know that we've actually folded that into a set of procedures for public hearing within the Planning Commission, but the time that I've sat on the Planning Commission, that's worked very well.
That is accurate. So the procedure should be that during public comment, during public hearing, the public is able to come and ask questions, and you as commissioners should make note of those questions and then address them after. However, if we're going to have extensive deliberations on this particular special exemption permit, that should be saved until after the motion is brought. So obviously answering questions, that is completely appropriate, but deliberations on this special exemption permit should be brought only after the motion is made and on the floor, if that clarifies anything.
So it's not eliminating questions. It's just the timing of.
Exactly right.
We need a motion.
Okay. So, all right, if we're going to jump to the motion so we can then debate, is there someone who would like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the special exception permit with no conditions.
Support.
Okay. Now, Sam, any questions? Anything else you'd like to add to this item?
No questions and not necessarily concerned, but this is the fourth medical marijuana provisioning center that I've seen in Planning Commission in the same 1 mile stretch of Woodward Avenue. And personally, I'm quality over quantity, and this development definitely looks like it's on the quality side of things, but it's just a consideration I think we should have.
Okay. Thank you. Sue, anything you want to add?
We have 5 licenses that are going in non-overlay districts, and I think this one is sympathetic to one of the main concerns of the citizens, and that it's not in the neighborhoods. I know it is in close proximity to the church at Rapid and Woodward, but based on the entry and the divided median on Woodward, I really don't think it would be detrimental to the church. And I think the elevations are great. That's about it.
Great, thank you. And just a quick question. Is it my understanding you have an architectural background? Is that?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Architecture from Lawrence Technological University, and I have 30 years of engineering experience.
Thank you. Thank you. It's helpful to know. Thank you. And Christopher, questions, comments, please.
Just the comment that I've had before, that I'm uncomfortable putting this, a special exception permit at this time, approving it, because I just don't know how medical marijuana provisioning centers will operate in Pontiac. I think what's been brought forth does represent, I think, a good, reasonable proposal based upon their experience elsewhere. However, in terms of saying, hey, this forevermore, I'm just uncomfortable at this time saying yes to a special exception permit in this area, as I was last week.
Thank you. two quick things that I wanted to comment on about the question about, or the statement that was made by Darlene. We don't need to accept all applications, and I agree with you. We deserve to have quality businesses in Pontiac, and I think as commissioners, we all keep that in mind. But it is important, and it's helpful to have you come up and say that as a resident of what you want to see. So thank you for saying that, but please continue to bring that to us, because that's the only way the city moves forward cohesively, rather than just only one person stating a thought, and then we do the best we can with the input that we have from one person, if that is the case. But regarding the medical marijuana, I don't have any, I mean, I guess the timing isn't necessarily what we can control as commissioners. If someone's application is moving through the process, where they happen to be geographically in the city, as these come to us, I personally don't feel that I can stop someone because someone over off of Walton didn't get their approval for their application yet. So I don't have a problem with what's in front of me tonight. So, you want to do a roll call?
Absolutely. McGinnis?
Yes, to approve.
Shepherd?
Yes, to approve.
Harlow?
Yes to approve.
Northcross?
No to deny.
Henley?
Yes to approve.
Sinclair?
Yes to approve.
All right, 5-1, the motion passes.
Okay, congratulations. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to bring in the new business 9A application SPR 23-12 for Common Citizen, the site plan review.
To save time, I'll do this up here. So this is the site plan application, as we just discussed at 45671. It's reusing the existing one-story concrete block structure on site, and there's a lot of nonconformities, which limited some of the analysis that staff had for the site. So this is the location again. This is the zoning district that it is C3. Here's the overall site plan, and if there's any questions about this, I'd be happy to return. This is the architectural renderings that were provided. The top is the south elevation, which is looking at the parking lot. The bottom is the east elevation, which is looking at Woodward. Here is the site plan itself and the renderings as we discuss under the special exception permit and the existing street view. So as part of just some analysis and some feedback, we are requesting a photometric grid be provided at the final site plan for exterior lighting, just to ensure that there was proper lighting on the site. The existing structure is out of compliance for the dimensional requirements for the setbacks in a C3 district, but again, these are legally non-conforming. And then the private frontage design standards, non-residential buildings must have 65% transparency on the first floor front facade. It is unclear, it's definitely much less than 65%, but they are not increasing the nonconformity. They're actually improving it, so in staff's analysis, it can continue. They do, and they meet the parking, and they do not have the bicycle parking that is required. So, again, some of this analysis is in here. Really, when you're looking at a site plan, there are 5 standards of approval that you're reviewing. Number 1 is circulation. This is not changing with the site. It appears adequate. Number 2 are the buildings. This should not have adverse effects on the owners and occupants of adjacent properties, particularly because they're improving the architecture of this building. Number 3, the natural features. There are no existing natural features on this site. Number 4, the site layout and screening meets the landscape requirements, is not adjacent to a residential property. And number 5, in general, it meets the zoning ordinance, and where it doesn't, staff feels that those are legal nonconformities that legally can continue. So with that, staff's recommending approval of the site plan tonight with the following two conditions. Number one, the nonconformities identified in the staff report will not be altered, extended, or enlarged. And number two can actually be withdrawn. That is, any conditions placed on the associated special exception approval must be honored. So just to recap, there were no conditions placed on that approval. So if you want to move forward this evening, there's only one really relevant condition on this site plan. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Michael, any questions?
I'll make a motion that can then proceed deliberations.
Yes, please.
I move approval of the site plan with the following two conditions. One, the nonconformities identified in the staff report will not be altered, extended, or enlarged. Two, any conditions placed on the associated special exception approval must be honored.
I'll support that.
Great, thank you. Do you have any questions, Michael?
For the applicant, can you share for the community and the planning commission your intended timeframe following site plan approval? And microphone, if you can make the microphone come alive.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah. Quite frankly, I can't speak to that. We're going to have to get in front of staff and do construction drawings and documents, and we've got the big facility in Westland that's coming out of the ground, so, I mean, it's not tomorrow. It's a few months out of the way, I think, from our civil engineer. We're talking about 10 weeks just to get drawings ready. I mean, you don't spend money for the drawings if we're not approved with the site plan. And so it's going to take some time, but it's not years, that's for sure. It's well within the time frame that the conditional license would give us.
So would Westland be location number 10, or is that location number 9?
No, Westland is location number 10. Yep,
Okay.
sorry, I should have mentioned that.
No, that's okay. And so ideally Pontiac will be a location number 11 to follow, or there are others in the shovels to be in the ground?
Well, so in this market in cannabis right now, coming out of the ground is a little more rare than actually looking for somebody that needs a little bit of help and you go find an existing facility. So we're always looking for existing facilities. Okay. But I would say Pontiac would hopefully be 11, absolutely.
And what is the acreage of the Westland site?
Oh, Tim, do you know off the top of your head? Yeah, it's just under an acre.
And what's the acreage for this Pontiac site?
0.9. So.
And I see that it's about 6,700 square feet, 6,000 or so for sort of the public facing, and another 700 square feet approximately for storage. Where, for the community's benefit, where does the storage fall within the overall footprint? Is it essentially like the back, or is it?
I'll bring our architect up because it's a lot easier for him to go through it.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Harold Rumlinger, Design Team Plus, 975 East Maple, Birmingham, Michigan. The actual storage is located in the dead center of the building. It's not up against any exterior walls, so that way we can have full protection of it. We're also proposing that storage is being made out of concrete block, again, adding another level of security to the storage of the cannabis product within the building.
Thank you. Very insightful. And if you might be the best to answer this next question. It's less than 65% window that we're talking about, but from the proposed site plan and the renderings, obviously there's a great deal of windows and it looks very beautiful. Do you know the ratio or percentage that we're contending with?
Yeah, I do. Let me open that up right now. So currently, the wardward-facing facade is 1,894 square feet of building facade. We have approximately about 14.2% of glazing on that. One of the things that we have to look at when we're designing a cannabis facility is meeting the state regulation that no cannabis product can be visible to the public right of way. So where we actually focus the glazing area is on the actual public side of the business, where the intake is of the patrons coming to purchase there, the waiting area, the reception area, so that way you can see activity from the street, but you're not going to be seeing any cannabis product being visible from the street at that point.
Thank you for highlighting that, and it's worth recognizing that there are state parameters and state obstacles that you must clear as well, which don't necessarily align with all of our other site plan considerations. So thank you for elevating that.
You're welcome.
What's the age of the existing structure? What year approximately was it constructed? If you're-
That I don't have any record of.
Okay. Are there substantial deterioration or structural integrity concerns based on your initial?
No, on our initial walkthrough, the building's sound. We feel that we can take it over and modify it without incorporating or, coming against any type of additional cost to handle any type of deficiencies within the structure at all.
And the surface of the parking lot, is it something that will be resealed or what you're looking at in terms of the site's parking lot plan of action?
That'd be a question for Mr. Story.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Tim Story, President Story Engineering. Address is 48264 Manchester and Macomb Township.
Thank you.
We're actually proposing to repair the parking lot with a brand new surface, and there will be a few grade changes and whatnot, and then it'll all be brand new striping, everything, it'll all look brand new.
And is there fencing at the perimeter of the site in relation to Woodward Avenue that will remain, or what should visitors or travelers by anticipate?
Yeah, there's no fencing along Woodward, and I think that rendering does a good job of representing what it will look like. But it's a green space, and we're adding landscaping over and above what's there, and then the architecture from the building. It'll look like like what's coming up here, there. And then the parking lot, it's all, it'll all look brand new. All that concrete's gonna be, actually, it's all new.
Right. I really enjoy in the site plan about the shrubs to be allowed to knit together facing Woodward Avenue, and I welcome the planning manager's feedback, but I think that the landscaping plan for this site plan is substantial. Does it exceed, or is it meeting what's required, or is it also exceeding, per your understanding?
I don't know the exact numbers, and this was not a case I had worked on greatly, but I think it's close. If it exceeds, it's not by much.
Okay. But I think it benefits by the existing sort of vegetation screen to the rear that isn't necessarily on this site, but is site adjacent. So it definitely will give a green appearance. Yeah, you could see that there with the aerial with the Canadian National Rail that runs behind. All right, I believe that takes care of my questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
There is one thing I want to mention, if I may.
Yes, please.
We do actually have bike parking proposed, if you could scroll back to the site plan that you had on there a second ago. Just on the bottom of the building, the bumped out building where it's all concrete there, it's hard to see, but there's 6 bike parking spaces proposed right there. There's a note to it, so.
Thank you for adding that. Great. Tim, any questions or thoughts?
Always good to follow Mike. I don't have any questions. He does a good job.
Sam, anything?
Yeah, just a couple questions. The first one, it says, I see the note that says existing site lighting is to remain unchanged. Does that mean you are not proposing any architectural lighting?
The only architectural lighting we're proposing is underneath the canopy that we're creating, so those are direct down lights. We're not doing any additional lights around the perimeter.
Okay. And then, do you know what the largest type of truck you'll be having for deliveries or cash pickups?
Typically, they're like, the largest truck you'd see is like the garbage truck that has to come pick up the trash.
For our sake, I think it might be helpful for a truck circulation plan.
Truck circular.
Yeah.
If I may ask, Commissioner Henley, as a follow-up, we've had discussions, and I don't believe a dumpster was being proposed for the site. Are you guys at the current time proposing a dumpster here?
Yeah, we're proposing a dumpster, and it's on the site plan.
Okay, there we go.
It's in the southeast, or not southeast,
I
lower
see it.
right
I see
corner.
it.
Sorry, north arrow is rotated.
We can require that at the final site plan, absolutely.
And it provided a visual of what that enclosure with the gates would look like as well.
Yeah, and that would need to be a natural material, not a fence, so, with our code.
Great. Anything else, Sam?
No further questions.
Thank you. Sue?
I have to say, I did not vote for medical marijuana. And I can respect the concerns of the citizens. Being that I work in Ferndale and I work off of Hilton, I have visited the 3 facilities. I've followed the planning commission meetings due to my just desire to, keep up with design and what's happening within our city. And even though I, was just appointed last night, I did view your site. Currently, it's a used car lot, and I look at this as a great opportunity to enhance that area. When I compare the elevation of this proposed facility to live in Ferndale, I think it's far superior. It's nothing like Green Buddha in Ferndale, and it's not like Nature's Remedy, so it's definitely a quality facility. And
And I must share with you, we acquired Live in Ferndale. We didn't build that one out of the ground. So Lansing is one we built out of the ground. This will be one out of the ground. Lake Orion is heavily renovated to us. Westland is out of the ground. Those will all look pretty much the same.
To me, I think this is an optimal site for one in a non-overlay district due to the M1 concourse on the rear and the buildings to your north and your south. So those are my only comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Christopher?
I have no comments. I think the questions have all been asked, and plans, my initial look at them, they look great. And as I heard my fellow commissioners comment, they are great. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. I don't have any questions. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I think we're ready for a vote.
Henley,
Yes to approve?
Sinclair,
Yes to approve?
Northcross,
yes to approve.
Yes to approve.
Yes to approve.
Yes to approve.
the motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations. Welcome to the neighborhood. You're welcome. All right, we are going to move to our next item, which is back to public hearing. It is the application of the zoning text amendment regarding stormwater. And we are going to be visiting, it looks like, with Al Cooley, the City of Pontiac Public Works Director. And the address is a citywide item.
Okay. Good evening. So I'm going to be presenting for Al this evening. Al is our Public Works Director and also oversees the engineering division. And there are a few changes that the city is required to make to comply with the Federal Clean Water Act and the state of Michigan requirements of the Clean Water Act for our local stormwater ordinances, and this is also for our permitting. So there is definitely an urgency to get these passed as soon as possible. This is a separate text amendment than last week because we just got this information from our consultants after the public hearing was set out for last week's hearing. So these text amendments are detailed in your staff report. I do want to identify there are two sets of amendments, ordinance amendments. One is the zoning text amendment tonight, and then there's a separate stormwater ordinance that's being considered by City Council concurrently next week. I do not have that in the packet, but that is under review currently before it's being presented to City Council. Nothing in here is unique. These are following state guidelines after the review of our code. So there are three items. I know there were two identified in the staff report. I want to identify the third on the next slide. But number one, Site plan review is required for developments that disturb areas of 1 or more acres, including projects of less than 1 acre that are part of a larger common plan of development or sale. Most new developments, major expansion, and redevelopments. And site plan procedures and requirements are listed in 6.204. So what this is clarifying is anything that disturbs more than 1 acre of a lot, of a development, of a project would qualify for site plan review in the city of Pontiac. So there are other criteria beyond that in our land use chart, but this is specifically for the disturbance of acres that of 1 or more or less than 1 of part of a larger common plan. The second item listed below is from Table 17, and it talks about detailed storm sewers, site grading, drainage, detention basins, and other pertinent facilities. This is only adding the other ordinance that is being considered by City Council, and this is to keep us in alignment, and that is Section 118-3, stormwater control of this ordinance. So this is more of a reference that is being added to keep us in compliance with the state. The last one is having to do with disturb area. I mentioned on the last slide that we were adding that to the ordinance. And so we have gone to another jurisdiction, and we're actually defining this in our zoning code just to make it simple for interpretation in the future. So I'm going to read that. It's up on the screen right now. Number 1, or disturb area means an area where soils are exposed or disturbed by development, both existing and proposed. The disturbance area includes staging and storage areas, structures, and areas needed for vehicle access and maneuvering. Agricultural and pasture land are not considered part of a disturbance area. For utility lines, trenches, and other similar linear work, the disturbance area includes staging and storage areas, the linear feature, and the areas on each side of the linear feature impacted by the construction. Where necessary for safety in deep trenches, the disturbance area may be made wide enough to allow for bending and the shoring of the trench. So that really is the report this evening. Staff recommends approval of the zoning text amendments as presented for the following sections that are listed up there. That can be your motion this evening. Now, while I am not an engineer, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have about this ordinance change. This is slated to go to City Council if recommended approval tonight. It is slated to go to City Council next Tuesday for first reading. So.
Thank you. I will first go to Michael. Any questions?
Not presently. Thank you.
You're welcome. Tim?
No questions.
Thank you. Sam?
Are we allowed to make conditions to this ordinance? The reason I ask is I'm interested in requiring stormwater plans as part of site plan review for Planning Commission.
That is a little bit of a different topic as part of we have our requirements for stormwater. Those are often done at a final site plan. Now, are you looking for that as part of a preliminary site plan?
Yes, but if this is not relevant,
yeah, it's not relevant to the federal regulations. And I think one of the things in your time on Planning Commission is we've worked with a lot of existing sites or small sites. There's not been a lot of stormwater being added, but that is definitely something that needs to be. It is already accounted for in our site plan process. I can definitely share that with our engineers as we are coming up with things to amend in the future to see if we need to make any considerations to amend that in the future. Okay.
Thank you. Sue, anything?
No questions.
Thank you. Christopher?
No questions, and I do like how the text that's being removed was lined out, and the italic red text used. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Helps me read and understand. Thank you.
And I have no questions, so I'm ready for a motion.
Is this?
We do need to do a public hearing.
Oh, I'm just so anxious to zip right on. Okay, I'm going to open public hearing. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record if you have any comments about stormwater. And I don't see anybody coming, so I'm going to close public hearing. All right. May I have a motion?
Motion to recommend approval to City Council for zoning text amendment.
Do we need to read what's up there?
as presented for the following sections, 6.204, 6.208, and 7.301.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any support?
Support?
Thank you. Roll call?
All right. Henley?
Yes to approve.
Yes to approve.
Northcross?
Yes to approve.
McGinnis?
Yes to approve.
Sinclair?
Yes to approve.
Yes to approve.
The motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations, City of Pontiac, Al Cooley. All right. Now, we are going to go to some old business. We have the application number SPR 22-032. It's applicant 819 South LLC, also known as Cartessa Real Estate Company. It's the preliminary site plan request to allow for reduction in parking for multifamily apartment buildings at 829 Gulf Drive.
All right, so I've got a little presentation here. I just want to describe that what I'm going to be doing is explaining what they're seeking tonight, but I'm also going to be giving some background from the preliminary site plan approval. I know several members were not on Planning Commission when this went forward. I just want to give some context for proper analysis. So this is phase 2 of the Westwood apartments that are on Gulf Drive, and it's part of a kind of a mixed-use development of different types of uses. There's a former church that's vacant back there. There's a PACE, like senior facility. So this is for phase 2. We have the zoning ordinance for the city has a request for 1.1 parking spaces for every bedroom. To comply with this requirement, the applicant would need to provide 231 parking spaces. Due to constraints for the number of parking spaces and the reality that the spaces are not necessary to serve the residential structure, the applicant is proposing, it says a 69 space reduction to 162 parking spaces, but I want to clear with the applicant tonight. I believe that in the packet, he has some off-site parking spaces, and if there's an accurate easement with that, it is 211. If an easement exists, and I think we can find that out through this case. But regardless, there is a reduction, and he is seeking an approval tonight from Planning Commission. We reviewed the minutes, and there was definitely discussion that took place, and we want to acknowledge that. But legally, there needs to be a formality of Planning Commission making a condition or making a motion allowing that reduction, and it did not appear that that happened. This is hopefully not backlogging the applicant. They are still submitting things for final site plan. This is just something to protect ourselves as a city along the way and protect him and future owners of this property. So this is the location of the facility at the red dot. Again, this is that large facility to the bottom of that is Menards. And then you have the American House, Village of Bloomfield, and Pace, and some of the other things. You also see the golf course along Gulf Drive to the north of there. So again, the preliminary approval was granted on March 2nd, 2022. The applicant shared to the commission that 75% of the two bedroom renters only use one of the bedrooms for sleeping. The commission didn't raise concerns that night regarding the parking and approved the site plan. And the motion was to approve that evening for the preliminary site plan was to approve the preliminary site plan to allow the planning manager authorization to grant the final site plan approval. So beyond tonight, there's not expected to be any more case for this development to go to Planning Commission or City Council. So the authorization for reduced parking was not recorded as a condition. So the regulation is that the Planning Commission may modify the numerical requirements for off-street parking based on evidence submitted by the applicant that another standard would be more reasonable because of the level of current or future employment or customer traffic. The Planning Commission may condition the approval of a modification of the parking requirements that bind such approval to specific use in question. This regulation allows him to get this permission without going through a variance, which is the normal procedure. This is the overall site plan. North is to the left. The American House is to the top, and the former church and school is to the bottom. And then, so Gulf Drive is on the left, but this is showing, I apologize, my laser is not working this evening, but there are 5 buildings proposed here, and then you see there we go. Okay. the parking spaces are located right here. Now, the applicant is seeking final site plan approvals from planning, engineering, fire, so there could be some small changes as part of this, but that review is taking place currently. But what this tonight is just planning commission is to making a motion allowing and approving the allowance of a smaller thing of parking, a smaller requirement for parking. This is the map that the applicant provided showing the on-site and off-site parking. And if the applicant could speak to this in a moment, that would be great. So staff's recommendation is due to the applicant's prior request to reduce parking, staff recommends approval of the proposed reduction. I think we can leave the numbers off based on what we find out this evening, but that is my staff report. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Michael, any questions right off the bat?
I'm interested to hear what the scoop is with the off-site parking.
Okay.
But I seem to recall that the site in question, part of the reason why we authorized the staff for final site plan approval was anticipation that nuances with the parking could be worked out among other final considerations. But I recognize that it's better to make it tight and clean for the sake of long-term resolute nature of resolving the matter. I want to commend the applicant for traveling with a laser pointer in your pocket. Clearly came in handy for planning purposes tonight. And I've heard from a lot of Pontiac residents and people that work in Pontiac that have been interested or sought or have signed a lease for these facilities. So it fills a great need in our community. And residents of our city and people that work in our city, they have a growing variety of transportation arrangements for themselves and their families. I mean, we have 20% of the people that live in Pontiac don't even have access to a car. Not only a car, they don't have, immediate family member that they can call and give them a ride. So we have tens of thousands of our neighbors that wouldn't be utilizing a car. And as we have expanded the investment and decision as a region, at least as a county in terms of transportation options, I think that residents in this and other developments in this vicinity, Telegraph and Gulf Drive, that in the coming years will have expanded mobility options, which is all for the good for Pontiac residents. So I am receptive to this, and I think it will not materially impact the surrounding vicinity. Obviously, the developer will want to make shrewd communications choices with current and future residents of the facility, because it'll be a logistical issue for you and your operations if you misrepresent how many parking spaces per unit. But I do want to, I know we've talked about it before, but just to refresh me, how many units we are talking about for this current phase or this sort of iteration?
If you could approach the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
And you too.
Bill Chalmers, Cartessa Real Estate Company, 145 South Livernois, number 310, Rochester Hills, Michigan, 48307. Good to see the planning commissioners again, Mr. Northcross, Ms. Parlov, Mr. Shepard, and Mr. McGinnis, and welcome to the new members, Mr. Henley and Ms. Sinclair. You're off to a great start. Wonderful questions, and the architecture background I think is fantastic. 4 years. 4 years plus now we've been at this, and the transformations actually has exceeded all expectations, so thank you for allowing us to come back and pretty much finish it off at this point, but we will still be at it for probably another 2 years. This will be a 6-year project of completely transforming something that was pure blight with raccoon. We had squatters. There was a raccoon family that we had to evict from the former dorm. And it's been a great project. It's been a very satisfying project, and rave reviews all over the place. In terms of the question, it's 120 units. And dare I say, we're actually even putting in more parking than we need, even with this parking relief that we're seeking. It's still more than we're going to need, and here's why. Can you pull up the the overall plan. Yeah, if you go to my slides. So do you mind taking a few moments for the newer members?
Please, that's all good information.
Okay.
Tell them when to start.
So as we're waiting for the slides to come up, there's a very long history for this property with the Planning Commission that started before you started visiting with us.
That's right.
And there are only a few of us still up here who remember this history.
That long ago.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything that shows the overall? How about maybe back to the Google area?
It's not showing on screen.
You know, I think the PDF did show on your laptop, but, okay, that one. All right, so this was a former Midwestern Baptist College that was built in 1962. That was the classrooms, this was the chapel, and that was the dorm. PACE of Southeastern Michigan is elder care. PACE is an acronym for the Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. It's a federally funded nonprofit, head up by some pretty heavy hitters. One of the board members is Brenda Lawrence, former congressperson. PACE wanted to be here because they were drawing from other places, and what they do is they run buses, so they'll go to their participants' homes in the morning, pick them up, bring them to the place where they'll ballroom dance or cook or Skype with their grandchildren, all kinds of activities that they could do during the day, and then at the end of the day, the bus takes them back to where they were. They saw that they were drawing from this area, so they needed something here. They were drawing from Waterford, the fringes of Waterford, Auburn Hills, Bluefield Township, and that, so that's why they wanted to be here. We identified this property, and we have the 12 acres. School was never part of my program at all, but it was total of 24 acres. Mine is the 12 here, and while we had to add on to the chapel in order to make a larger facility, the big question is, what do we do with the former dorm? It's literally a dorm. Men were on one side, it was a co-ed dorm, women were on the other side, and that's where the raccoons ended up living in the late 2000s. So as the school went kaput, a former music teacher from the University of Michigan bought the entire campus. And what he was going to do is have summer band camp there. So he would be inside at the big school, on rainy days, and be outside on nice days. And then they could also stay there for summer camp. Well, with this type of facility, you can imagine that maybe the numbers aren't really going to shake out. I mean, summer is only so long, and how many kids are going to get? So, of course, it was not successful. And then he thought he wanted to do assisted living here, and that's when he started coming before Planning Commission, and it was ill-conceived and not very well thought out. I happen to be, I currently chair the Zoning Board of Appeals for Rochester Hills. I've been on Shelby Township's Planning Commission. I've been on Rochester Hills Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And so I've been in and out of city halls for 20 years. And certainly in the last 10 or 12, we kept hearing about affordable housing, not necessarily affordable housing that's subsidized, just workforce housing. So when we started talking about what are we going to do with the dorm, I said, well, if we can get a price point to maybe $850 for a 2-bedroom apartment, now I can start attracting and housing the workforce housing that I keep hearing about. And lo and behold, we did. With me is Billy Chalmers. He's my leasing and property manager. He does all of our leasing. He leased up that dorm of 26 units. Former dorm, we converted it into 24 2-bedroom and 2 1-bedroom apartments, each with their own bathroom. So we went from a dorm that we remember from college with common areas of common restrooms and common eating areas, all that, and converted it to 26 individual dwelling units. He leased it up in 3 months. So we knew we had something there. This land right across the street was just vacant land. So we said, well, this leased up that quickly and that. For new construction, now we have no land basis. So if we're gonna have to, given the way construction costs are, we might have to charge a little bit more rent, but we're still gonna be on the lower end of what 24 and Bloomfield's doing. We're even gonna be lower than Crystal Lake. So we've been able to do that. So that is what we're calling now Westwood North. These 3 buildings that you all have approved in the past, these 2, and then I came before you with the amendment. And that's where you all approved the parking relief, parking reduction at that point, because what we recognized is 819 has 64 spots, and they're only half of them are used. That's because what we're seeing, what our theory is being proved out. At that time, we probably had 3 or 4 couples at a 2-bedroom who had 2 cars. Right now, 100% of the 2-bedroom apartments are used by 1 person. So what we saw was happening, what we thought could be true, and now it's happening with Westwood North, where 80% of the 2-bedroom apartments are used by 1 person, because we're keeping the price points so low. We'd like to think of ours as a good value Chevrolet. I mean, it's a nice Chevrolet. We don't have the pool, we don't have a carport, but we do have balconies, we do have patios. It's a wonderful product, but that is what's serving this need from $1,000 a month to probably $1,100 a month to $1,300 a month, plus electric. Everything else is included. So it's working. So we have 3 buildings here. The first building was finished, and then he leased that up in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I thought you all might want to hear the breakdown of our new Pontiac residents. Average age is 33. White collar is 19. Blue collar is 5. The predominant employer is United Wholesale Mortgage. 50% of our residents work at UWM 2 miles away. They're thrilled. They keep funneling them in. And as I've said before, it's great to have Amazon. It's great to have AUK. It's great to have UWM, but how much better would it be if we could actually house them here in the city of Pontiac? And here's where they're coming from. Rochester, Auburn Hills, 3 from Waterford, Warren, Bloomfield Hills, where we got 4. Some are coming directly from 24 at Bloomfield. So again, we are right. We don't need the pool and the pet park and the workout facility. If people want it, great. It's there for you. It's just not going to be here. If you want to save money and have a good quality, brand new product, Westwood Apartments is a place for you. Pontiac, some folks left very poor living situation to come here. So we've kept 3 from Pontiac. You know, they probably would have left the city if they didn't have this product. Clarkston, Westland, Roseville, Washington Township, Clinton Township, Warren, Madison Heights, Commerce Township, Detroit, and even we got a new med student from Louisiana who's going to work at St. Joe's. So that, like I said, 6 weeks, and we've got the other 2 buildings. I mean, as soon as we build them, we're filling them up. So that's how we had the confidence to then say, all right, we got the land in the back. What could we do there? Engineers came up with another 5 buildings, 24 units each, which is 120 units. So it's a very long answer to Mr. McGinnis's question of how many units. Applying the same parking principles that we previously thought might make sense, that would bring me to, really, we only need 158, but I'm still putting in 211 to be safe. By your ordinance, it's 231 are required, so I'm really only looking for relief from 20. Back to our off-site parking arrangement, there is an easement in place. It has been submitted to staff. So there is a hardcore easement in place. Can you go back to the graphic that shows that one that I sent you, the outline in red? That one. Part of the reason why we have this is the same thing. Pace, old parking standards, required Pace to have so many. The only people who come and park are the staff. They don't have. Everybody else is bussed in. But based upon old parking standards, there's a huge parking field here, so they don't need this. And then to be nice neighbors, and we have a very, very good relationship, we're going to pave this, and that's where they can put the buses. That way, they've got a little bit more proximity whichever way they're going. But the buses will now be there instead of here when our residents are coming in and out. But that is a recorded easement in place that's in your staff. If for whatever reason you don't have it, you'll certainly have it tomorrow morning. So that's why I say 211 versus the city's 231. We're really talking 20 spaces. Could I go down? Yeah. Would I like to save the pavement and have more landscaping? Sure, but that's not really what we're talking about unless you want to provide us to kind of relook at that and maybe even go down further. But I know it's certainly less than 231, but I'm comfortable at 211 if you all are. That's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Wow, thank you. That's great. I love the timeline of everything because it's been so long. And you filled in things that we didn't know about from before, so thank you for all that. All right, because this is not a public hearing, it's actually just information. Michael, do you have any more questions?
No further questions, thank you.
Tim?
No questions, just thanks for what you're doing. It's great. I drive by it all the time, so
Thank you, Tim.
it's fun to see something work like that. So.
Thank you. Sam?
Sounds like a great development. I have no questions.
Thank you. And Sue?
I just wanted to say thank you for your thorough explanation on parking. It really clarified some things for me, so thank you.
Okay.
And then Christopher?
Question, the 211 number, that gets down to what, 1 car per bedroom?
We have,
As opposed to 1.1?
we have the 2 bedrooms, we have a total of 90. And 31 bedrooms. So I know you're an engineer, right, sir? So you can probably do that math quicker than me in my head.
Yeah, well, let's see,
So
90
would
to
be
180.
So if you had one
Plus,
for the
yeah, that works out to, and the other one was 30. Yeah, it's about 211. So that's about 1 car per bedroom as opposed to 1.1 cars per bedroom. Yeah.
that's the most concise
Yeah, I was
thought
just
I've had on this whole thing.
Yeah, so, yeah. And,
You're right.
And
That's it.
I think parking is going to change in terms of what we require in the future, just for a whole number of reasons. And, yeah, I don't have any problems with it. And I also have to say, your buildings are going up exactly like I thought they would look.
That's great to hear.
Which is rare.
That's great to hear.
Which is rare.
Yeah, I don't think we've redlined any plans. And back to Mr. McGinnis's point about, transportation changing in that, somebody can live here and be able to walk to Village at Bloomfield and get their daily grocery needs, work out, get a hamburger if they want, get a haircut if they want, get their nails done, all that type of stuff that they need to do, and it could all be done without a vehicle.
Or work there.
Oh, and work there as well. Oh, and work there. Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about employers. Well, I did. I just went white collar, blue collar. But yeah, we've got two or three from Menards as well, and a couple of students.
Wonderful.
Grizzlies,
Great.
Golden Grizzlies. Pardon me.
Was that you? That's right. Anything else? Great. And I have no questions either. So do we need to make a proposal here? Mr. Yandrick?
So really, I think what we need from Planning Commission is a motion to approve the preliminary site plan with a 211 parking spaces.
All right. Would someone like to make that motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary site plan with 211 parking spaces.
Thank you. Any support?
I'll support that.
Excellent. Roll call?
Parlov.
Yes, to approve.
Yes, to approve.
Shepherd.
Yes, to approve.
If someone could turn their mic off so I can turn it on. McGinnis.
Yes to approve.
Sinclair.
Yes, to approve.
Henley.
Yes to approve.
The motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right.
Congratulations. You're welcome. All right, we are now going to item,
So if I may address the two resolutions that are next on the item.
Yes,
We,
please.
as a recap, Planning Commission approved two resolutions for the vacation of right-of-way. Actually, one was for an alley at 1104 Baldwin. The other one was for Bradford Street as part of UWM. As part of this procedure and working with legal, it required a resolution from Planning Commission, which is new to a lot of us planners. But we did review with Michigan law and Planning Commission can adopt a resolution. So there are 2 resolutions in your packet this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, but this resolution goes to City Council when these items come forward.
I do have a question. What is the purpose of the resolution versus what we did? What's the difference here?
It is obligated, or we are obligated to adopt it as a resolution instead of a motion under the zoning ordinance, so.
We will review efficiencies and best practices in the future, but this is what we need to do under our current code.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So do you need us to make a proposal for you?
A motion to approve the resolution with regard to Bradford Street.
Motion to approve the resolution for vacation of right-of-way of Bradford Street.
Any support?
Support?
Roll call.
All right, Sinclair,
Yes to approve.
Northcross,
Yes to approve.
Shepherd,
Yes to approve.
McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Henley.
Yes to approve.
The motion passes 6-0.
Very good. And then we need another motion for Baldwin.
Motion to approve the resolution of the vacation of right-of-way for 1104 Baldwin Street.
Thank you. Any support?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call.
All right, Shepherd,
Yes to approve.
Sinclair,
Yes to approve.
Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Henley,
Yes to approve.
Northcross,
Yes to approve.
McGinnis.
Yes to approve.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations. All right.
Your first support on the commission.
Yes,
Yeah.
good job. So now we are going to have an information session about rezoning from Nicolo Mastromateo. He's requesting rezoning from R1 to R3 for Longfellow School at 31 North Astor Street.
All right. So good evening. Before we introduce the applicant up here, this is an informational session. There is nothing being decided tonight. This is an opportunity for Q&A between the applicant and Planning Commission and vice versa. And really, if there is any feedback to provide to the applicant, you can do so. This is a zoning map amendment request that is going to come forward in public hearing next month. So we're really not talking about site plan. You may have questions related to it, and that's okay. But just remember that really the zoning district change is the key function of this discussion. So the applicant is Red Chickweed LLC, and the proposed use in the future is for a mixed-use multifamily residential. The mixed use is there is a little commercial that an actual restaurant that may be considered as part of this. The applicant has met with several city staff members to discuss this site, and R3 seems to be the zoning district that would be most applicable to turn this vacant school into a multifamily residential district, utilizing the existing school but also building upon it. So this is a map showing the area. The main street going up and down is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And the street just below it is East Pike Street. So that helps you give it, this is northeast of that intersection, but does not include the parcels that are along Pike Street with this rezoning request. The Longfellow School, I think it's been closed about 10 years, it may be longer, but it is, this would be a repurpose. So this is the current zoning map. It is zoned R1. The properties at the corner intersection, I believe, are zoned C1, but everything else in this block is R1 for one-family dwelling. These are some concept renderings provided by the applicant. I have complimented them on this. There's a lot of trees that are provided, but this is really showing the existing Longfellow School, as you see in the front of this image, and then potential two-story apartment buildings that would be in the rest of the facility. So Martin Luther King Boulevard is on the other side of those buildings. Pike Street is the road to the left on this image. This is the sketch plan on the left, and they also provided a notated sketch plan. The applicant is talking about doing this in 2 phases at the moment, but really, in order to move forward in the site plan process, needs a rezoning to ensure that this land use is appropriate for this, or this rezoning request is appropriate for this land in this area. So I will share this at the public hearing, but I wanted to give some information as part of a zoning map amendment of the difference between R1 and R3. So R3 is a lot more permissive than R1. R1 is for single-family homes, and then a few community uses such as cemeteries, community centers, or schools. R3 has a broader range of uses, but it does permit some special exception approval for commercial uses such as restaurants, banks, studios, bed and breakfast, offices, and mixed-use facilities such as this. R3 is primarily geared towards mixed use and higher density residential development. On the right is the charts from Table 2 of our zoning ordinance if you wanted to analyze that a little further. But this is really the difference in what you are evaluating in this rezoning request. These are the standards for approval. There are 2 pages of these. I apologize for the image from earlier tonight. There are 10 standards. I'm not going to go through that this evening. Staff will be providing an analysis at next month's public hearing, but I really wanted to give the floor to the applicant just to be able to make his case for you and allow for that Q&A and discussion. So if, Nicolo, if you want to come on up here.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, Nicolo Mastro Mateo, representing Red Chickweed LLC and 735 West Huron. They're changing the address to 31 North. They're putting in mailbox. I just have to stop and double check, make sure that's going through.
Thank you. So please describe what your vision is for this location, what you think you'd like to do.
Yeah, so thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. So we got it broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 is the school conversion. And, you know, these plans kind of came together over the last couple years, mostly from East Siders, but you know, other people in Pontiac too kind of gathered some feedback, crunched numbers, met with people, and kind of the best use for the property, at least from those results and from what I'm seeing, is mostly multifamily, but call it multifamily mixed use, a few community aspects in the school. So the school would be 35 units, 1 and 2 bedroom. I think we have 27 1 bedroom, 8 2 bedroom. And then the commercial side of it is the boiler house would be converted to like kind of a welcome center with a few side offices too. So there's a couple nonprofits in town that would be in there. And the kitchen, I don't want to name who it is, but if I said the name, everybody would know who I'm talking about. But it's a local group that currently doesn't have a shop set up. And that's kind of a perfect fit for them, perfect size. And at United Shore, there's the burger place. I'm blanking on the name, but from Birmingham, you know, that's kind of the look or
Hunter
feel.
House?
Hunter House, yeah. That's it, yeah. The gym is going to be, I don't want to say community center, haven't figured out exactly what to call it, but more of like a business center hub of sorts, kind of like a coffee shop sort of feel, but with the other tenant in the kitchen there's windows rather than, you know, coffee, but I'm hoping to have couches, chairs, TVs, maybe a pool table, something like that, where people from the community can come hang out too and residents can stay. The auditorium will be a movie theater for residents and also a space to be rented, whether it's presentations or what. And there's a 501 group starting up in the neighborhood and they want to do plays, you know, stuff like that. The basement of the boiler house, I still need to make sure this is doable with the architect and whatnot, but the nonprofit I had started, we're hoping to do music, so we would like to get a recording studio down there. So I'm kind of looking into that. Ideally, the kitchen and the boiler house would be completed first, then the apartments. Phase 2, those are just concept renderings. We're trying to, you know, when I first saw them, it was too much. There's too much cement, but we're trying to have a good presentation from the roads. And we were just looking at maximum unit counts with parking and, you know, kind of coming up with ideas. So that's by no means set in stone. It's just kind of the look and feel. And that's for 145 units. So total 35 and 145, 180 units. And the commercial space is, I want to say it's about 5,000 square feet. That's because 2,000 in the gym, 2,000 in the auditorium. So it's really not too much commercial. As you can see, mostly all apartments. United Shores, 1 mile south of the property. Amazon, 1 mile north. Downtown, 1 mile west. And some on the notated sketch plan to the right, those are some ideas, kind of work in progress. To the left of the school, which would be the north side in that top left corner, there's a picnic area for the restaurant. There's a Clinton River Trailhead parking location. Assuming plans are going to continue with Pike Street, and I've discussed the possibility with the Clinton River Trail, and they like what they hear. Those above the school, those are just little parking areas if needed. Prefer to keep it grass. And to the right is a dog park to the right of the school, and underneath a couple basketball courts with drinking fountains. So the idea is the whole idea is apartments, but to kind of merge with the community. The more I've gotten to know this neighborhood, I think I got pretty lucky stumbling onto this school. I wasn't out to specifically purchase this school, but I'm glad it went through the way it did. I'm actually trying to buy a house on the street and move in. Just been having a little difficulty with him, so hopefully that'll resolve itself. But neighborhood's great. I've only heard positive. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if something comes up, along the way. But tried to involve the community as much as possible, getting these plans put together, and excited to get rolling and hopefully sound like the Bills by the time this thing's done. Any questions?
Yes, actually, I'm going to just jump in because I have a question. We have had so many schools that were prime candidates for what you're proposing. I mean, and this looks pretty unbelievable in a great way. Can you give us a little bit of your backstory? How did you come to find this? Is this something you've done before? Just share a little bit more about yourself, if that's okay.
You mean this specific property or just the development in general?
What's your background? You're a developer? What is?
I got into real estate because I was interested in development.
Okay.
Left and right brain, both. I do music, draw, that sort of thing, but also kind of analytical. So I found a job about seven years ago or so. That kind of gave me a look into commercial real estate, brokerage, construction, design, all the different factors, and I got comfortable on the phones, that sort of thing. But I moved into being a broker and more so an agent for commercial, and it never really clicked. And I met a developer who was pretty keen on Pontiac, and my first call as a broker was to the State Bank building. Second call was Ottawa Towers. Third call was Riker. I could have those mixed up. Riker was probably first. And I started meeting people in Pontiac, and I wound up leaving my other spot for development, and really for Pontiac. This was part of a larger deal with Ottawa and Phoenix, and had to buy this as exchange for a deposit. And long story short, this turned into the asset, at least for me. So hoping to make that work.
Do you have the financing in place for this yet?
It's not going to, no.
Okay.
I do, but I don't.
Okay.
You know how it goes. Nobody's going to make the commitments till everything's approved.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely have some big backers and some big developers and real solid team put together too, which, at some point I'm happy to share.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to pivot to my left here. Michael, do you have questions?
Thank you very much for coming here tonight. How many acres is the parcel?
6.6.
And how many square feet is the existing Longfellow School?
About 35,000.
Have you considered incorporating or retaining essentially the community significance of the name of Longfellow? It's a school that obviously ran for nearly a century. Generations of families, especially in that neighborhood, would have had a personal connection to it. Do you already have a new vision for the name, or is there ways in which Longfellow might influence or impact how you brand it?
Well, I've always been planning on keeping Longfellow in the name. I don't know exactly what the final would be, and I'm open to ideas and that sort of thing. But I do like keeping at least the name Longfellow in the name.
Good deal. Yeah, I think it's powerful. That's just my personal opinion. This would be an amazing catalyst for the east side of Pontiac, and the need is strong, and that site is not currently optimal in terms of a vacant school, but also the large tract of vacant land that's just sort of, a grassy plain, if you will, at this point. I am philosophically very inclined to transition a site such as this to a higher density of residential. It's on a major thoroughfare, or at least a road that can handle traffic. Intentionally, it was reconstructed. Everything that was facing, when I was a teenager, everything on MLK was torn down on that side of the street to make the road wider so the road can handle it. It is very close to M59, obviously, and there are other apartment buildings or even row house apartments in close proximity or sort of just down the street. So it does make sense that there would be higher density. And I really appreciate the way in which it sort of the line of sight, how it's facing, how you have it facing, versus having the parking lot be what residents are seeing or what passersby are seeing. I think that adds value to that surrounding neighborhood, and it adds value to that thoroughfare. Those are my questions or feedback at this stage.
Thank you. Tim?
I agree about the density idea. I think it's a great location. So I've known Niccolo for a few years, so probably one of the most pro-Pontiac people you'll ever meet. So he's been persistent, and you said it's 7 years now? So I probably, or no, five, 6 years. So I probably met you the first day of that, maybe, so.
Yeah.
So he's been one of these people that just sticks with it. He's very active in the community, the people he's gotten involved. I don't know if they're still involved on this project, but are somebody that dove deep into this whole idea. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a tough project, and he's one of the few people that can figure this out. But I think the density makes sense in a location like that. I think 59 is great. So yeah, keep it up. Hopefully you pull it all together. So.
Thank you. Sam?
No questions right off the bat. I would just say for preliminary site plans, it'd be very helpful for the 3D renderings to have the actual material finishes and any architectural elements rather than gray blocks. I know those are just stand-ins for now, but just to include in the preliminary site plan phase would be very helpful.
Okay.
Sue?
I think you've got some great opportunities with this school. I think you've got a fantastic lot. You can do a lot with it. With regard to phase one, I just give you a word of caution. Similar projects have been proposed. And I think you should really look into like the auditorium, the occupancy, and because you're mixing it with residential, there's only so much you can do. So you're gonna need either special exemptions as well as possibly variances. That's just my concern right now. I mean, we really need a school project to come through that's reused. And so far, potentially this one, to me, is probably the most probable. I think it's a great concept. And look forward to seeing more and hearing from what the residents want in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Chris?
Yes, I am excited to see Longfellow put to some use. It's going to be a tough project. It's an old school, and needless to say, there's the big A there, asbestos. But I think it's, there's still a lot of nice features in that school that might lend itself well for what you want to do. So, question. Will this be a 3-story or a 2-story? Longfellow right now is 2-story.
Yeah,
and
technically it's 2.
Yeah, they do have that little thing at the top in front. but the other buildings, they'll be two-story?
In these sketches, it's two-story, yes, but that's not set in stone. It could, depending on what the city might want, depending on how much green we want to have. In some sections, we could go up to 3. I think the limit is 2.5, technically, for
Something
the
like,
zoning.
like 35 feet, I think, is the
Yeah,
height.
so if it was 2.5, as of now, it would have to be garden style for the bottom floor.
Okay.
As of now, it's drawn up for 2.
Yeah, yeah. And are you looking at do you have a feel for what price range the apartments would rent, what type of person, or is that still up in the air?
No, I'm glad you asked too, and a couple comments that have been said jog my memory too. First, I want to mention we want to look at the corners too when we're drawing up the actual site plans to, the presentation coming from the south and coming from the north, rather than seeing just a point there that you see in the picture. The look of the buildings, ideally will be masonry. I know it makes the project even harder to figure out, but that's kind of the look I'm going for. I don't plan on selling this ever, really. If there's a property on Woodward where Woodward splits just south of the gas station, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, on the west side of Woodward. I think I want to say it's Art Van Foundation, but they put a nice brick building up, dark brick, big windows. That's kind of my idea of what I'm shooting for. In terms of rents, the goals, kind of what Bill was saying earlier with the
More of a market price?
The new market housing, technically. See, I still haven't figured out quite how to pitch this, but it's market housing technically, but attainable is the new buzzword they're using. Affordables, it's not going to be what people's concept of affordable is. In short, my target renters are Pontiac residents. And the other ones would be current employees in Pontiac, United Shore, Amazon, so they become residents. But first and foremost, priority would be Pontiac residents. I'm trying to keep the rents as reasonable as possible. And so far, the numbers are looking pretty good compared to the comps in the neighborhood and throughout the district and city.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe there's a critical mass that we need to hit to go to the next level in terms of building and movement and transportation that this would facilitate, that could change the living costs for everybody there. When you get to a certain density, there's other services and things that become available that might not be available at lower densities. Hopefully. It's a tough project, though. Boy, those schools are, I sat on the school board for a number of years, and trying to redevelop schools are tough. Wow. Even when we tried to put in, we did the first wiring for the internet, that was tough. And we did get introduced to the meaning of asbestos as we tried to drill through walls and other things. And we had to do it in the summer where the guys with the space suits would come in and we would run the wire through the walls. But yeah, once you get beyond that, though,
I got the asbestos or the hazardous materials surveys done, all the environmentals, all that stuff. So a lot of background work has been done. Funny you mentioned the asbestos and the spacesuits, but Robert England, as far as I'm aware, he was kind of overseeing the original sale of all the schools.
Right.
I had met with him after I bought it. I don't even think I walked in before I bought it, but he says it's in the best shape, if not the best. One of all the schools. Everybody I've brought through, construction guys, they say it's got great bones. There's not as many problems as they thought there'd be. The asbestos number is reasonable, and I met my environmental guy through Robert England, so he has ties with Pontiac as well, and he's not too worried about it either. And I know it's a difficult project, but I got no choice, so I'm not going anywhere. And it's a little easier than the last ones I was working on. So, yeah.
It did benefit from being one of the last schools to no longer be operating as a school, of those that were closed and sold off. But the Historical Society does have images from the interior of the school plays from the 1920s, class photos, the way in which the art rooms were just magical. And so if you ever want to use that for future iterations at no cost, that the Historical Society has those images in our archives.
A little bit of a history buff too. I'll have to stop by.
Great. Any other questions? I do have two questions. Talking about the rent, are you looking to have any of this rent subsidized in any way?
I guess not officially. I started a nonprofit, and it's tax exempt from the IRS for, I want to say it's all eight tax exemptions. Everything else is listed under those 8, as long as it's for Pontiac citizens,
Okay.
for the city's benefit.
Mhm.
So I've definitely been looking into utilizing that to subsidize rents.
Okay.
So that's, I don't want the label affordable. I don't know
Right.
what to call it. Pontiac housing is fine with me, but yes.
So do you have a general idea of numbers for rent? Is it $300? Is it $500? Do you have any idea of a number? I mean, you have to have something to work with if you're trying to satisfy your investors. There's got to be numbers somewhere.
Yeah, no, there's a range of numbers. I should have looked at the pro forma before I got up here.
I mean, just a ballpark is fine.
Yeah, I think on the lower end it was, I want to say like 800, 850, low end.
Okay.
High end for like the biggest one, there's 2 units above the auditorium and 2 above the gym, 1,000 square feet, 12-foot ceilings, brick. I want to say those might be the highest at like 1,400.
Okay, that helps a lot.
That's what I'm remembering, somewhere along those. But most of it's underneath 1,100, kind of in between 9 and 1,100, if I had to guess, ballpark.
Thank you for that. Great. Well, I don't have any other questions. This is very exciting.
Do you have any questions for Planning Commission?
Not at this time, but
Okay.
if any questions come up, I'm a little bit of a newbie, so I might not know the procedure exactly. Just
We'll
let
help
me
you
know.
through it. So.
Exactly.
Appreciate
If I could just state, really, the applicant has submitted the plans for the rezoning. We're gonna be showing the same material at the public hearing, and really, we're not talking about any site plans stuff. Now, it's understanding the desire, the density that he's looking for can be considered, but really, this is solely a rezoning, and those other items will wait till a site plan comes forward. So, just as a reminder, and if there's anything the Planning Commission may want, or individual members may want as part of the analysis from staff in this request, please let us know, and we can make sure to incorporate that into our staff report and have that for you next month. So,
Good.
I have a follow-up question for
Yes,
staff.
please.
So the applicant has submitted, were any conditions included with the rezoning request from the applicant?
not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. I think, Nicola, we are all set. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are now ready to move to public comment. I'm going to open up the floor. If anyone has anything they'd like to say, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Carlton Jones, 1323 Oakland Drive. I'm wondering, I know that I didn't get a chance to hear about, I was just talking to the folks out there about additional units over at that site on Golf Drive. I want everybody to be very conscious. I'm not quite sure how the traffic would flow with all that coming off Golf Drive into that school, into Pace, into American House. I know there's one entryway that comes off Telegraph into American House, but is everything scheduled to flow into right off Golf Drive to those facilities? And the parking, we want to truly consider that because I think it could get rather dense over there. I support the fact of us trying to develop it, but I want it to be a very well-developed, smooth-flowing entry, exit. And I know that there's been questions about the golf course property, but the entryway does cross where golfers have to pass right now from one hole to the next. So the flow of traffic over in that area And especially also in that area, there is no sidewalks. So I don't know what residents trying to go down to some of those other residential areas, there is no sidewalking, especially from that entryway down to the next housing development. I think we should consider, if that's going to be well developed, that the sidewalks do be put in at some time. I don't know if it's by the city or whomever, but when we do have developers coming in, it's a good time to see if they can help make it a very walkable community. And I know Mr. Northcross here, I was never aware myself of a sequence of the rolling out for the medical marijuana. If it was, I wasn't aware. So if he said I wasn't aware of it either. But I agree with Ms. Barlow that right now we should be truly trying to embrace those who are trying to get engaged and look at those who come forward with their plans ready to go and let them open the door. Thank you.
Thank you. Please again state your name and address for the record.
I'm here as a resident. My name is Darlene Clark, 506 Nebraska. First, let me say this to you guys, and I need to reassure you this. I have no problem with quality change. Now, quality change, what it is, my standard of quality change may not be yours, but nevertheless, I do agree with change. But I also agree with guidelines within those change where everybody that's there and coming can get something out of it. So let's understand that, okay? Because Pontiac, again, is a diamond in the rough, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. I have lived, been places, and seen things, and I always come back home to Pontiac. So let's clear that up. One thing I have a problem with, and this is to you, Mr. Nicholas, I can't say your last name, so I apologize for that, and to the board here, and to our building inspector, and to our attorney, and you as well, ma'am. Understand this, Longfellow is a name that the residents of Pontiac have held on with, and it has a reputation of quality. When you sold the school, or the school buildings that was sold, the name should have been taken back with it. I don't have a disapproval of you doing whatever your plans are, but I do disagree with him using Longfellow, because Longfellow is an entity in itself. I am an identical twin, 3-4 minutes apart. I am not Carlene, I am Darlene. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have to live on my own plateau and grow from there. And with that, I say is why I object to people taking over names that have credibility, and because their project may not go the way that Longfellow had came out, the reputation. It may go higher, but it may not. You see what I'm saying? So for longevity, if you guys can push to take the names back off these schools, Jefferson, Longfellow, Franklin, other schools, and let them, let's live off the memories that they left us.
Thank you very much. Okay, if no one else has a comment, I'm going to close public comment. And staff communications.
Only item I have is that we are having a June meeting, not just with this application, we're expecting a few others, so we're finalizing that agenda as the deadline for submittal was today. So.
Thank you for that. Before we adjourn, is there anyone here as fellow commissioners that needs to say anything before we close the meeting? I'm going to go to my right. Sam, anything you want to add?
I've expressed this before, but I won't be at the June 7th meeting.
Yep.
Thank you. Sue?
No comments.
Thank you. Christopher?
To the high school seniors who are now in the process of graduating, who live in Pontiac and go to school in Pontiac, I strongly urge you to make sure that you have gotten registered with the Pontiac Promise Zone Authority. By doing so, you open up a pipeline of up to $36,000 for tuition reimbursement because you live in Pontiac and you go to school within the Pontiac School District. Do not leave high school without completing those applications, your FAFSA and the application for the Pontiac Promise Zone Authority. Don't leave school without it.
Thank you, Christopher. Tim
No comments.
and Michael.
At last night's Pontiac City Council meeting, Mayor Grimal's appointment of Sue Sinclair to the vacancy was unanimously approved, rendering that appointment in effect. So congratulations to now Commissioner Sinclair. It's like a talk radio show. Long-time planning watcher, first-time planning commissioner. So welcome, welcome to this side of it, and thank you for your diligent engagement as a resident. Very astute, very studious, very engaged, and the planning decisions to come will be all the stronger for that. So thank you for the experience, perspective, and passion that you bring to the table.
That's a very nice compliment. Welcome. Anything else?
I know at next month's meeting, I will report back on how the city council renders its various verdicts on the recommendations that the planning commission has originated when it comes to street vacation, alley vacation, zoning text amendments. The planning staff is firing on all cylinders, so the planning commission is firing on all cylinders, and the city council is firing on all cylinders to do our respective part of the process. So thank you, everyone, for your work here tonight and at recent meetings.
Thank you very much. And now, Mark.
So we are proceeding to the executive chambers for training. The meeting is open to the public, but is not being televised and after this adjournment.
So we are ready to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Maybe we need a second on that.
Yeah, can I get 5 minutes?
Yep.